Hello, this video is going to be a little bit different than previous ones. I haven't really taken that much footage of, or any at all, in fact, of my work this week. Instead, what I'm going to do is be a bit more casual. It's just going to be a chat about the stuff that I've done, talking about the problems that I've done, all that sort of normal stuff. It just won't have any footage of me sewing things or cutting pieces of materials or designing patterns or anything like that. And that is because I have just not really been feeling it lately. Designing and making these clothes has been quite tough for me. It's something that I'm incredibly new to, and still learning a lot. And all of my energy has been going into making sure that these clothes work well on Sally. And I've just at times completely forgotten that I'm making videos as well. So I hope that doesn't put you off from watching this. It is just going to be me. All of the information is still going to be there, and I'm going to be showing you Sally's new clothes as well, so yeah. Hello, I'm down here on my floor because I've run out of spaces in this tiny room to film an interesting kind of backdrop, so you might be seeing some kind of weird shots from me over the next couple of videos. Anyway, I'm going to talk about Sally's jumper. I'm pretty happy with where I landed on this, although it did take me quite a long time to get to this point. I did go through quite a few different things. The first thing that I tried to do when I made this was to do her collar up here, because I had a feeling that this might be the most difficult thing to do, and it sort of turned out that it was, but not for the reasons that I had originally thought. As you can see, it's sort of like a rolled collar, and it's also got this piece in here that sort of acts as an interface between the rest of her jumper and the rolled bit. But yeah, I was trying to work out how to do this kind of construction here. What I thought it would just be a sort of a ring that could go around her collar, and then in my sort of naive brain, you could very easily just you put a rolled neck collar on the top of that. You just attach that to the inside of the ring, and then the outside of the ring attaches to the shoulders, etc., and then it all works perfectly. And I had a couple of tests. This one here and this one here, but they were not really working very well. As you can see with this one, there was a lot of sort of bunching up on this circle piece here, and the same thing happened with this one. You can see it's just all kind of gathered up in there, whereas what I wanted it to do was to sort of stretch out over her, around her collarbone. I had a sort of closer look at knitted jumpers with these turtleneck type things, and I've actually got one myself that's in this drawer here. No, it's in that drawer. And what happens is that the pattern is just a rectangle, and it's sort of folded around and then tied, sewn together. So it's a ring, a bit like this one here. But since it's stretchy material, what you can do with the bottom part here is pull it out. So rather than have a ring, like what I was trying to do with these ones, you just have a rectangle, and then the bottom piece just kind of stretches out at the sides, and that's why it works. With the stuff that I was trying before, this stuff, I think it's calico, and a couple of iterations before that I was working with, I don't even know what this is. These materials weren't stretchy, which is why that wasn't working for me. And you can see on this one, I was on the right track. This collar is a rectangle. You can kind of see it like that, the pattern of it. But because it's not stretchy, it's the circumference of the bottom. It always stays the same as the circumference of the top. So on this one, the sort of collarbone part was wide enough, but because it wasn't sort of contracting, as it were, or stretching at all, the top was an equal circumference, so that just ended up in having a kind of cowl neck type thing, which wasn't the neck construction that I was trying to go for. Then the other way round, I guess, would be that you make a collar that is the right size for her neck, but then can't reach this circle here because it can't stretch to meet this bigger circumference. It took me a while to sort of work out that it was the stretch that was the important thing, not necessarily the shape of the pattern. I couldn't solve that issue with pattern alone. I had to get a stretchy material. That is where the vast majority of the problems with this process of making this jumper came from. Was that I was just not getting that it needed to be stretchy. So I faffed around for like a week and a half trying to do this jumper that was sort of doomed to fail because I wasn't using the right material. The other thing is that this is quite thick, and though it looks okay like this, when you put it on Sally, it was just too heavy, and it was constricting her movement a lot. Similarly to when I was talking about the trousers in the last video. The fabric really needs, at this scale, really needs to be very, very thin. It's not good enough that it's like a thin material if you're wearing it on your person. It has to be like uber thin in order to work properly with the way that she moves. And for that reason I also changed her trousers as well. It's the same design, but it's just a thinner material, so it sort of doesn't constrict her as much. She can sort of move around. I've also sewn the pockets on more strongly, so before I was sort of tying it at each corner, and these knots were sort of failing and they were falling off pockets. So I've just gone around and done all four sides, even the top, so they're not functional pockets. Yeah, it's just working a lot better now that it's a thinner fabric. I've also sort of done something with her. Whoops, it just fell off. I've done something with her waistband as well. So before I had this thing at the back that was like cinching it together because it was just too big. I changed the pattern slightly, so now it fits her waist a bit more. And I've gone ahead and put a kind of hook in there that hooks onto some loops on this side, as a way of sort of like tying that together, and done her fly in a way that sort of looks a bit more natural as well. So going back to her jumper, the success of this is pretty much it's like almost 100% changing the fabric. The pattern is pretty much the same as this, apart from the collar, which I changed to make smaller, so it's like when it's unexpanded, the circumference is the circumference of her neck, and then I've had to pull it and expand it in order to reach the sort of collarbone neckline. I think the cuffs worked quite well. They're sort of like rolling, and also, again, because it's stretchy, I made them smaller than the circumference of her wrist, so it has to sort of stretch in order to get around those, which just gives it a bit of sort of grab when it comes to her wrist, as you would find in any normal piece of clothing. And similarly with her waistline thing, the hem. That has a name, I'm sure it does. And the colour also as well, I think is slightly better than the woollier one. The trousers are slightly further away than the previous version, which are more kind of a charcoal grey. These are a bit blue, but I don't think that really matters that much. It's not that different. So yeah, I'm really happy with this jumper. And then for the second part of this, what I was doing this week, I've been working on her coat. And I fell into exactly the same trap as I did with her jumper in working at this thing and then realising a week later that, oh, it's the wrong material. So what I tried to do was just to get the pattern right, and then I'm going to go out and get some thinner material, because this is, as I said before, this is thin material. If I was making a proper coat out of this would be a very thin coat, but because she's 10 times smaller, it's not thin enough. A couple of other things as well, like to do with the weight of the fabric. The rain guard on her shoulder, in a traditional trench coat, that's like quite a thin piece, and similarly the rain guard at the back as well. But it's because of the way that I've sewn it, it just doesn't appear to have that kind of like lightweightness that a real coat would have. It looks just a little bit too thick. Otherwise though, I think I've worked out the pattern. I think it might need to cinch in a bit, so I think the back might be a bit too wide in the pattern, because there's quite a lot of space around her torso, like particularly into her shoulders here, which I think I could do with losing a bit of that. I've been using a piece of string to tie around her waist to sort of like act as the belt for the time being, because I couldn't be bothered to make a full sort of fabric belt, and think it was worth spending the time doing that when I know that I have to change the material anyway. And that is a better figure, I think, cinched at the waist there, although you can see like this is immediately kind of like puffing out there and then going down. So yeah, as I say, I might need to reduce the amount of space that is around her torso. One thing that I'm really struggling to get right is the way that her collar attaches to her shoulders and to the lapel here. So I'm following from the Mood Fabrics website, again, the same place that I got the trousers pattern from. I'm following a pattern from there. And the way that it works is that you sew, so this collar is like a separate piece. You can see the seam there. And the lapel is like part of the front piece of the jacket. So you can see there, that crease is, yeah, so that's the lapel there. This is the collar. That's how that construction works. However, the way that I'm sewing these pieces together, because the collar folds outwards, you end up seeing the seam a little bit when you come into, you like zoom into her face. That's quite a visible piece. And also there always sort of ends up a little bit of fluffiness in that corner there. And I just can't work out how to stop that from happening. I think one way that I could do it would be to have the collar, so the collar's in two pieces, two of the same pieces, and it's sewn together like this and then folded outwards. What I think I could do is, because it's two pieces, I could have the outside piece as the way that it is, so that sews onto the shoulder and the back and the front and all of these pieces. But then the inside piece, I could have longer, so it goes inside, folds down and covers that seam. That might be a way of doing it, though I'm not sure how it would look right at the edge here, because it wouldn't be a sewn piece. It wouldn't be sewn to anything, it would just be sort of flapping around. But I'm going to leave all of this stuff for a while. I've been getting really inside my own head with trying to work out these patterns. As you saw from the number of times that I was trying to do the collar, the problems that I've been having with the materials as well, is like, it's getting a bit much for me to sort of continue doing. What I'm going to do is take a small break from making clothes. I'm going to focus back onto the 3D printing things. I said before that there's still stuff to do there. I noticed that her face plate, you can see the line there, and this was making sense to me at the time because I hadn't thought at all about how her hair was going to go on, but her hairline's going to be like there, right? So if I'm taking her face off to like change her expression and things like that, I'm also going to be taking off half her hair at the same time, which would mean that if I kept it this way, every faceplate would need to have some amount of hair in it as well, and it would all have to be exactly the same because I don't want to like change the hairstyle between expressions or sort of give continuity errors and things like that. So what needs to happen is for her faceplate to sort of cut off just above her brows. It's pretty much just her face, rather than like half of her head, in order to get that out of the way of her hairline. So that's one thing. The other thing is I haven't done anything with her boots, and I had thought that instead of trying to make them out of like leather or anything like that, I would just print them. I feel like that's a much easier thing to do, because I'm not having to like faff around with pieces of material that are that big. I'm going to work on her wrists. So I think what I had before, or maybe like as a better example, do something with make her wrists the same construction as her ankles. So have her feet are just like friction fitted onto a peg here. They've got a hole and they just slide on like that, and they hold themselves on. And I think that's probably the best way to do it, rather than like trying to fiddle around with magnets. Her hand keeps falling off all the time and it's like spins around and things like that, so it's really hard to manage. And then finally, the joints. I don't know if I talked about this before, but her joints have become really, really loose. Well, that's actually because her arms fell on that, her shoulder. But they're okay, but they're becoming less stiff than they were before. And I believe that is because I've been printing these in PLA, which is polylactic acid, so it's not a petrochemical. It's essentially made of like cornstarch, I've been told. And what that means is that it's a very non-durable plastic, because it's very soft. It sort of grinds itself down, and the friction that once held the joints in place is gone because they're now really, really smooth. So what I'm going to do is change to a plastic called PETG. This stuff is PETG. It is a petrochemical, and it's also a lot tougher than PLA. The possible issues that I'll only know when I sort of test it, I guess, is that it's quite shiny. You can see how much luster it's got there. Whereas the stuff I'm using, the PLA, is specifically matte PLA, so it's the microsurface of it is rougher than the microsurface of this. I don't know how much bearing that has on friction, because it is a microsurface. It might not really matter too much, and also how well paint adheres to it. So those are issues that need to be found out with testing, but I believe that because it's a tough material, it won't grind down quite so much, and therefore won't sort of like loosen over time quite as quickly as the PLA has. Something also that my dad suggested was like violin rosin, because that's specifically designed to increase the friction of the bow on violin strings. So if I put a little bit of that inside the sockets, perhaps that will increase friction, and that might work as well. But at the same time, it's really sticky, so that might work against me. That might become too sticky, too friction, and sort of gum up the works, as it were. Or literally, I suppose. I might also work on Osam's design, so could be drawing her. So potentially next video could either be working out Sally's model, or it could be going back and starting the process all over again, but with Osam this time. But yeah, I'm looking forward to stopping doing clothes for the time being. I'm really happy to be doing this, and I know that I'm lucky to be able to do it in the first place. This is something that I've been meaning to do for ages, and I'm finally at the position where I can not work in employment and do this instead, do things that I'm passionate about. And it might seem kind of, is churlish the right word? I don't know, I'm going to use it anyway, to be complaining about things. But I'm complaining about them because it's tough to do, not because I hate doing it. So I hope I don't sound kind of ungrateful for the opportunity that I have to do this when I'm talking about being fed up and things like that. Really, I do love doing this, and I've had fun making the clothes. I haven't not had fun, and sort of sewing by hand is very therapeutic to me. I've managed to listen to like an entire lifetime worth of podcasts to go along with it. I've learned a whole lot of stuff about patterns and the way the clothes are constructed and things like that, and it's just yeah, looking back on it, I've been quite negative about it, but really it's a good thing to have done, and I'm happy that I did it. That will be the end of this video. I think I've talked enough about clothes making, and hopefully you have something to look forward to in the next video, whatever that might be. You can join me again on my floor sometime next week, or the week after probably. Some other exciting corner of my room that has yet to be filmed. But until then, I hope you have a good couple of weeks. And yeah, I'll see you then.